Hello everyone, thanks for coming back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the HGLRC Parrot 120 Pro, featuring the HGLRC Flame 1106 6000 kV motors, FD413 flight stack, which has the FD411 flight controller, 13 amp 4-in-1 ESC, and a power switchable VTX from 25 milliwatt all up to 400 milliwatts. Running the 2540 GemFan props, comes with FrSky, FlySky, or without a receiver. Mine has the FrSky XM Plus, Caddx EOS 2 FPV camera, 25 volt 470 microfarad capacitor. It does come with 2 extra props, a baggie of extra screws, a 1-page instruction sheet for the flight stack, receiver information, and stickers. It does appear to be 120 millimeters. Bottom carbon plate appears to be 2.5 millimeters thick. Canopy is TPU. It weighs just about 76 grams. I flew it on this GNB 3S 520 milliamp battery, which brings the weight up to almost 120 grams. Ah, what a glorious flying day we have. Nice sunny skies, no wind. I believe at this time, this was probably about 71, 72 degrees, just primo flight. I wish I'd have had more time this day. But first thing I want to do is send out a thank you to Andy RC. I had experienced some PID tuning frustration with this, and you'll see that this is not perfect. So I had reached out to Andy RC and said, hey, you know, I saw you did a tune on this. Do you mind if I use it? He said no, so he's very gracious in allowing me to use this. I tinkered with it more because I was trying to get some of the fast turns when I do around the trees. I still have some oscillations, and I was trying to work that out, and I wasn't able to. I actually flashed a few different versions of Betaflight on this, and one thing I learned is I'd never seen this before, but after you flash the Betaflight on this, you've got to go in and put all the CLI settings, so you need a dump file in order to get things back. I noticed right off the bat, I noticed all the ports were gone. I was like, whoa, I've never seen that before. So I just happened to just throw the CLI that Andy had on there, and then it came right back, and I was like, all right, well, we got to start over on the tune because I didn't save that. So I kind of worked up. So what you see here is kind of my variation on Andy's tune, and I'm not necessarily pleased with it. I think we also get some camera jello or vibrations that you see in the camera because of the TPU canopy mount. That's something that it's become popular as printing has gotten better, but I still think if you want real rock steady video in your flight footage, that you're probably going to have to hard mount. Either hard mount through metal, carbon, something else, but you've got to shorten up the distance between your camera and any really hard surface like carbon or metal. The more distance you get away from that with TPU, you find you have movement in there. And I've noticed that on some of the reviews that I've done for HD video as well, when you have those little camera mounts that just kind of slide over the standoffs, and then you get a little bit of that HD micro vibration. So I'm not a big fan of this one by any stretch. I think there are a number of other options that are probably either better or greatly better. This flies okay. I don't think you would be unhappy with it. We really haven't seen a product recently that flies bad or is unflyable. It's just kind of those minute variables in does it fly well. I felt I was in control. It's just those little prop wash or oscillation areas where I do hard turns that I struggled in. And you see that we come in for the flight, and we're going to end up right around 2.5 minutes, but you could have probably got 2:45. As we go back to the native screen, we see that the battery's still at 361, which is good health, but we could have flown it down to the average cell voltage of 3.5. So you can get a little bit more flight time than what I've shown you here. So I didn't show you in the quick roll. I did my flex test. So flex test. I would say for this thickness of carbon, it's about what you expect. It's not flimsy, it's not rock stiff, so there's nothing either way that kind of stands out about this particular carbon. Go ahead and give a look there at the weave. It is chamfered on the outside edge, so that is a nice little touch, and it is very smooth carbon, and I think it's been clean because sometimes you'll get some carbon dust on some of these binding flies. This one has not. There is very little motor protection. And hopefully that lines up in a reasonable way to where you can focus on just this little nubbin out here. It only sticks out maybe 3 millimeters. So, I mean, it's really going to take a straight on, almost a nose up sort of impact in order to actually have any motor protection. I'm also a bit concerned about the distance between this edge and where our screw hole is. They're better off leaving more material around these screw holes, just in general. We've seen a lot of frames break here. I had a few crashes. I didn't break this frame, but that's one of the things that I always try to call out as things that I might see that could be potential weaknesses. I did zip tie my battery lead as I normally do, and they did use that Emax tape, or that tape I've been calling Emax tape, to secure the motor wires down, which is a nice touch. Their version is thicker. I keep calling it Emax tape just because that's the only place I know is going to have this tape. I know that it comes from there. I know that people have bought it from there and have confirmed that's the tape I've been talking about all these months, because otherwise you end up buying stuff from eBay and whatnot, and kind of in the pictures it looks like it might be it, and then you get it and it's not. I have got so much tape. I actually gave a bunch of tape to my youngest because it was getting full in the drawer, so I decided I needed to get rid of it. Anywho, what I was talking about, the jello or the shimmer that you may have noticed in the video, and my theory that it comes partially from the tune and partially because this TPU canopy. Now, I've toyed with quite a few of these in the past. Of course, I haven't reviewed this one yet, and I'm kind of thinking about not. But if you guys want to see a review, please let me know in the comment section down below. This is the Diatone. I believe that is the 339. GTB 339. It's the 3-inch version with the 1105 5500 kV motors, so very similar hardware to what we saw on the Racer X Twig. But this has got a pretty thin canopy, and I think you'll note in this as well as my 229 video, well, the 229 had a different canopy. They switched to this canopy on the retail version. You'll get a little bit of that jello and shimmer in certain maneuvers. The one that I see it oftentimes when you get more light in it, so when I'm coming down from that punch out over the top of the house, depending upon, you know, the clouds and the sun position, that when I'm coming down and I'm starting to get to where I'm going to be pulling out of the straight nose down and I'm going to even things out a little bit, that's when I'll see it. And that's the nature of our CMOS cameras. If you had a CCD camera on there, you probably wouldn't see it. But this has got a good thick canopy on it, and it's very similar. Like oftentimes I'll use this pickle canopy in order to be able to really kind of firm up the camera as much as I can. I find that this canopy tends to have a little thicker wall than a lot of other canopies around, so it's something to keep your eye on when it comes to these, and many of you have probably seen this already. Plus it's got a nice little spot to mount your antenna. I actually just make a hole back here with the soldering iron and then run a zip tie through there. This is just a little cruiser, something I putz around with, nothing I'm going to review. But this is a canopy I've been using quite a bit, and it's good and thick. It has minimal jello in those particular moves that I'm talking about. And this one's good and thick, and it's hardy, but I think part of the issue is we've got a fair distance away from where it's hard mounted, because I've seen that as well. If you soft mount those TPU canopies, like on a Whoop or something like that, and you take them outside and fly them, you'll see it really bad. So we've got a fair distance from where it's mounted to where the camera's located, and we've also got only one standoff in the back, so there's a fair bit of wiggle in the whole thing because there's just that one standoff in the back. But it looks cool, and it's nice, and it's very unlikely to actually break. That's kind of the upside of this, is it will flex and give and hopefully still protect your electronics enough to where they survive, as well as you won't have a broken top carbon fiber plate or plastic TP or plastic canopy or anything of that nature. Speaking of the canopy, let me move that one out of the way. You are very limited on your camera angle. I did have it maxed out throughout the course of that flight, and you don't get the rim in your view, as you could see, but you really can't fly it fast. Let's see if I can line this up, give you an idea. This is probably about, you know, if this, my hand on the right is horizon, this is probably your angle where it's even with horizon. That gives you some idea of how quickly you can move it forward for a racing sort of flight style. I do wish that the capacitor had been secured in some manner. We see this quite a bit where they add a capacitor, which is a good thing. It cleans up video or voltage spikes of various sorts, but we oftentimes just see them hang out. You know, it's fairly well protected back there. It's probably not a huge concern, but if you were to have one, I might throw a little bit of glue around those one way or another just to kind of firm up those tabs so that it doesn't move and touch anything it shouldn't touch. I do like that they used a nice battery strap, and they also have a nice thickness on the battery mat. You see there, the battery mat is actually thicker than the screws, so when you land your and it's pretty hard, so when you land, your battery won't be impacting those screws. So that's appropriate and fairly well done. We've seen in the past just recently where you get a little tiny thin mat and the screws actually stick out above that, so that doesn't work out very well. As far as securing the battery lead down, you could really do it wherever you want, anywhere across the back, even way back here. It just somewhere, and you see how, maybe you can see how I've got that little bit of a wrinkle or curve in there. Just give your battery lead a little bit of slack, so get your zip tie wrapped around there and just kind of push things that way in order to get a little curve or bend in the wires, and then hunker it down. I don't hunker it down like hard, just where I can't easily move it around with my fingers. Of course, our receiver is secured with the zip tie right up here, and that does mean that you're going to need to remove the canopy in order to bind that. I suppose if you snipped that, if you wanted to try to bind without removing the canopy, if you cut the zip tie and then you wiggled it out, I think the button for the XM Plus is on this side, so if you pushed it out this way, you might be able to reach the button. Speaking of binding, one of the things I've been trying to include is more information about how I do regular things. So this is Blu Tack, this stuff right here, and this stuff is awesome. It lasts forever. I bet you I've had this package a year and a half, and I've still got all this left. And I've still got this. So I don't know if I've thrown much away. I think at one point in time I had a ball I threw away because I had an odd practice where I was tinning up a flight controller on this, and when I pressed it on here and I plugged it into the USB, it wouldn't boot, and I must have had some solder is stuck in my little pad, so I threw that one out, started fresh. But this is Blu Tack from Bostik. This is the good stuff. The other stuff that's real bright blue, that stuff, in my opinion, is not good. I've got some stuck to my desk over here somewhere. Where'd it go? This stuff is what you'll find. I can't remember what it's called, but it's not Blu Tack. I don't find this to be nearly as sticky, and I just don't care for working with it very much. Matter of fact, this one was actually holding up a piece of art that my 9-year-old made for me down here in my little cave. And when you get this stuff and you get it on something, like if you heat something up, it will kind of loosen up. To get it back off of whatever you've got it, just dab the block that's cold onto it and it'll come right off. This stuff is really handy. I think you can get it from Amazon for $6, $7, $8, $9. I don't know, it's been so long since I bought some. But if you want a tool, some people like to use those arms. I prefer to use this stuff just because it has so many different purposes for me. But what I do when I'm binding these binding flies is I'll take my battery lead and stick it down in there, and then I'll have my receiver in this hand with the button pressed, and then I'll have my battery and I'll plug it in that way, and then this holds everything firm for me so I can get the receiver into bind mode, and that works out very well. I've been doing it for a really long time this way, and I don't know that I've shared it, but maybe I have. You longtime subscribers can correct me if I'm wrong, if I've shared this minor, simple technique for bind and fly binding processes. The antenna position they have, while not ideal for range, it does keep everything out of harm's way, and it does look pretty good. Also, the VTX antenna here, I didn't have any issues with it coming out or pulling out or wiggling loose or anything of that nature. They do include one extra antenna tube with a cap in the kit, so if you're interested in that. I haven't put my tune on the screen because I would just say go over and use Andy RC's. I don't think mine's any better than his. I have to tip my hat once again to Andy RC for letting me use his PID tune and then kind of try to build on it for my own flight style. It didn't happen to work out great for me. Got a giant bug in here. Excuse me, that was a wasp banging around in here. That's crazy. So I'll have a link in the video description to Andy RC's video on this particular one. Also gives you another opportunity. I'm sure most of you have seen the video already, but if you haven't, it'll give you an opportunity to see a different kind of flight in a different sort of environment so you can make a judgment for yourself on whether this is for you or not. Now, I would say at the price point without a receiver at $109, it's pretty reasonable. I'm hedging there a bit because once you add a receiver, it goes up to like $126, $127 depending upon what receiver you select. So in my opinion, it's less expensive to buy if you were to get this, to get it without a receiver and then add your own receiver in later. Most FrSky XM Pluses you can get for what, $12 I think it is. It's the RSXR that are like 20 bucks. So I don't know why the price goes up quite so much other than the trouble of additional mounting and whatnot. But that's there for you to choose. I'll have a link down in the video description if you want to go over and take a look, see if they've changed anything about the product since I reviewed it. Maybe Banggood or HGLRC has made a note about a Pro Tune or something that they've sorted out. Maybe they figured, a rock solid tune. I think that would be something that'd be pretty cool. I think if we had an RTF manufacturer that came out and they had like Pro Tunes that they would give. I know Diatone for a short period of time worked on something like that. They were building tunes from reviewers, but then that kind of went away. And I don't know why. I've never heard an official statement on that. Sometimes we'll get machines that have a tune on them that are very, very good. but I think a lot of that has to do with just being lucky. Anywho, that's the HGLRC Parrot 120 Pro. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.